bringing you into that question, you know that
Oh, it was on the truck?
Yeah, it was on the truck.
Oh, it was not. I thought it was in the locker. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
It was on the truck. Obviously, whenever we have drugs that are left out, there's something missing, we do a formal investigation. So,
sure.
We can ask some questions about that.
And that makes more sense now. I didn't realize that they were still on the truck.
Yeah. So, to make this easier for Shemaine, I've got some canned questions so that she doesn't have to type what I say, she'll only have to type what you say.
Okay.
So she's good at giving this spiel, so I will let her give the spiel about talking at a speed that she can type and
sure.
That stuff. So.
Okay, so I've got this type as well, so I'm going to read it for you. This is a formal investigation. The company does not allow recording devices of any kind during these investigative meetings, so if you have a cell phone or any other type of recording device on, please turn it off before we start. I will be typing your responses during the meeting, and I need to ask you to pause periodically so I can catch up the notes. At the conclusion of the interview, you'll be allowed to review the notes and make any corrections you deem necessary to cause the notes to accurately reflect your responses. Once your review and the corrections are completed, everyone present will sign and date them. These notes will then become an official record and will be entered into the investigation file. These notes are considered to be the work product of the company. Copies will not be distributed, nor will they become part of your personnel file. You may take your own notes during this process, but they won't be signed by the company and they won't be entered into the official record. Do you have paper, pen? Do you want paper and pen?
No, I don't think I need any.
Okay. There are 3 key points that you should be aware of. The first is confidentiality. Confidentiality helps to preserve the integrity of the investigation, and it's in your best interest and will help to curb gossip and speculation in the workforce if you refrain from discussing the details divulged during this meeting to your coworkers. Paul and I are only going to share details of the investigation with individuals in the company that may have a direct need to know, or with any governing regulatory agencies to which we have a reporting obligation. The second is good faith reporting. The company expects that you will be as truthful and forthcoming with information as possible during the process. Please be aware that deliberate falsification of records, lying, hindering the investigative process in any way, or bringing false accusations against another person solely for the purpose of doing them harm is grounds for corrective action up to and including termination. The third key is retaliation. The company does not tolerate retaliation of any kind. If you experience retaliation from anyone because of your involvement in this investigation, it should be reported immediately to one of us. If you aren't comfortable reporting any retaliation locally, you can also report it up to our regional director, Scott Lynn, or to my boss, Clay Singletary. Likewise, you may not retaliate against any individual for their real or perceived involvement in this investigation. Acts of retaliation is grounds for corrective action up to and including termination. Do you understand these statements, Tony?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions at this point?
No.
Okay, questions he's going to be asking you. I would ask that you keep your responses specific to the questions being asked during this portion of the interview. You may ask for a pause at any point to make notes or take a break. At the end, you will be given an opportunity to make any additional statements you feel are pertinent to the investigation, or to ask any questions you may have for Paul or me. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So, the floor is yours, Paul.
Okay. So, again, read some of the type questions, so forgive me if I'm not making eye contact as I read.
That's okay.
On September 9th, an unsealed NARC pack was found on the unit, which was 33.
Correct.
You worked out of the previous night. The pack was found to be missing 1 ketamine. What can you tell me about the missing ketamine?
Well, I guess it'd be easier just to explain the call, and that to kind of give some preface to where the ketamine went. That night we had a combative, presumably intoxicated patient that we picked up and transported to research. In transport, He tried to get off the cot a few times, but I mean, he was fairly intoxicated, so he wasn't too hard to control. And then during the transport, at some point, we weren't very far out from research. He actually got off the cot, and made it to the back of the. I was sitting in the captain's chair, and he made it to the back door of the ambulance. To the point of where my partner saw what was going on and immediately stopped the ambulance. And that's the first time in 9.5 years I've had to actually stop the ambulance because the patient was potentially going to jump out the back. So she was training a new EMT at that time, so she was able to get out, assist me in the back to get him restrained on the cot. He was seat belted, but he managed to. I don't know how he got out, but I looked up and he was off the cot. She stayed in the back. She asked if she wanted her to stay in the back while we had the 5 minutes. It wasn't even 5 minutes. We were fairly close to research, and the new hire drove us the rest of the way. She stayed in the back with me.
So Bridget was in the back?
Yes, Bridget. Yeah. We got to research, and at that point he had passed out again. Again, presumably he smelled of an alcohol containing, an alcohol substance. So, and he was known to law enforcement when we picked him up, and this was not unusual behavior for him. When he gets intoxicated, apparently. So when we were unloading him at research, I was outside, and I asked Bridget. I said, "Hey, throw me the narc pack, because I don't want this guy flying off the cot once he sees him." It was middle of the night, so it was dark out. I said, once he hits the light or sees all these people in the ER, I don't want him freaking out. And now we're fighting this guy in the middle of the ER or on the way to the psych unit with him, or the lock unit. So she threw me the narc. She grabbed the narc pack out of the lock box and handed it to me. And then she grabbed me like a syringe or something in case we needed to pull it up. And I did see in the narc box, there was the blue lid to the ketamine vial. It appeared to have been flipped off or knocked off, or in any case, it had somehow been removed. So I remember thinking, well, if he fights us, we'll just give him some ketamine, and I'll waste it when I waste the remaining amount. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to waste this vial. So we take him in. Long story short, we get all the way to the lock unit. We don't end up having to administer any ketamine. I get my signatures, and I told, I presume it was the nurse, there's several people back there in the lock unit that I had a waste to from ketamine. We didn't end up administering to him. She signed the ticket, signed for the patient, I believe, and we left. I stood there for a little bit and finished some putting his demographics in, because during transport I was dealing with him the whole time. I really didn't have any time to get any charting done. Then I walked out, realized I still had the ketamine in the box. I mean, she signed the PCR, but there was no. I don't know if it's because we were back in the lock unit or what, but there was no sharps containers. So at Truman, we don't have sharps containers in the lock unit, so I imagine that's why there was none there. So I went out to the truck, because I remember thinking that I didn't have any wasted NARC forms, and that's one thing that I always make sure that I have on my truck is wasted NARC forms. I know that there's an option in the computer, but I don't ever use it, because last I was told that wasn't something that we were going to be using. We still needed the paper forms. Okay. So I went out to the truck, grabbed the wasted NARC to get the wasted NARC form. And on this ship, I did not. That truck was already in service when I got here, because I was coming in late that day. I was the 5 to 5 truck, and I told Bartle I could come in and work 6 to 5. So I came in. That truck had already run calls, and I was put right on the truck. And I guess I just assumed it had appropriate paperwork on it. Well, Bridget looked around. She thought there were wasted NARC forms. She couldn't find any. I looked around. I couldn't find any. So I said, well. She signed on the. I had her when I was back in the lock unit. I had her sign in the wasted narc section, because at that time I realized, well, I don't have any paperwork with me, so I want to get something. So at that time I didn't have any forms with me to get what I wanted to have to turn in at the end of the night. So I said, well, I'll be back. I went back into the ER because I still had the ketamine I needed to get rid of. I went back into the ER and wasted it, or pitched it in the sharps container in front of the trauma bag, and left. I mean, I know that night I was already stressed from other things going on in my personal life. I'd been up for almost 24 hours, so that night in and of itself was exhausting. So I'm sure that by the end of the night I was backed up 4 or 5 reports, and I remember telling Bridget when we got to headquarters at the end of the night that I'm going to sit in the crew room and attempt to get some of this done. And it was sometime after 5, and I just remember saying that, is everything turned in? Can you need me to get anything? And she said, no, I got everything. Everything's put away. Everything's in the locker. And over from my last however many years working here, 9.5 years, I just assumed she grabbed the narcs too. I mean, it's not uncommon practice when people put everything away, and I'm not blaming it on her. I mean, I get it, but I guess just out of habit and out of past practice, I guess I just assumed, and again, it's probably because I was exhausted by the end of the night, and she said everything was put away, I just assumed she meant everything was put away. I parked my PCRs, because at that point, I didn't even think that I was going to be able to stay awake to drive home, so I certainly didn't feel that I was in the mental capacity to sit and chart on somebody's permanent medical record. And I left.
Hang on just a second, Paul. I'll go back and fix all the typos before we're done. Okay, go ahead.
So I've got a clarifying question.
Sure.
So you said when Bridget gave you the narc pack, the blue seal was off one of the vials?
I remember looking at it. I think I was going to set it on the back or under the head of the cot. And I remember when I went to set it down and I saw the blue lid. That's odd. The vials don't sit like that. They sit the long way. So I remember thinking, oh, well, the lid must be popped off. But, I guess worst case scenario, this guy fights us and we give some ketamine and then I'll just waste it then.
So the pack was sealed, blue cap off.
Yeah, that's what it appeared. Yeah. And yes, when I took it out of the narc pack and threw it in the narc bin, there was no lid on it. It didn't look like it was damaged. It looked like somehow in the process of removing it from the box or the safe and putting it in a narc pack at some point. But that narc pack was on the truck when I got here, so I don't know. I presume it came out of the locker that it was assigned to, but I didn't sign them out, and I don't know where they were prior to when I got on the ambulance. But like I said, it didn't appear damaged, so I didn't question the integrity of it. It just, I didn't want somebody else to do it. It's procedure at my full-time employer, being somebody that oversees our narcotics, that if there's a damaged or even a flip top missing off the vial, same with hospital, that it gets destroyed and wasted. Mainly because the top is no longer sterile, or the rubber plunger or the rubber stopper is.
So your narrative states the patient attempted to get up off the cot upon arrival at the ED.
Well, no, not upon arrival. Are you talking about when he was at the back door of the ambulance?
It says upon arrival to ER, patient attempted to get off cot. Patient assisted back to cot. Patient left in care of ED staff without incident. That was your. So you mentioned. So your. Well, here's your.
If I can. Patient was placed on. Oh, shortly before arrival to ER. Yeah, shortly before. So a few minutes out. I mean, we were probably down the street from research.
Okay.
I think probably 60 minutes of Mateo, I think is good. Or even 30. In fact, we might have almost been to 71. We were not very far away. That's why, because I remember thinking, well, I could give him ketamine now, or something to at least chemically restrain him at this point. But I thought we were still closer to 435, and I remember saying, "Oh, we're just a few minutes. We're right down the street from research, so I can just ride in the back with you."
So, okay.
So shortly, yeah, I would say probably 1 or 2 minutes out. Which at 3 in the morning on 63rd Street.
Okay. So then, to be clear,
Mm-hmm.
there was no behavior after arrival at the hospital.
None that required any sort of
That
chemical
would have warranted
sedation.
you to. Okay.
But I didn't know that. I mean, obviously, hindsight's 20/20. I didn't know what he was going to do between when we arrived and we went inside, based on his past behavior in transport. So.
Okay.
So once you were in there, if there wasn't a medical need to give the ketamine,
Right.
You had a sealed pack. Did anyone witness you pull the ketamine from the pack? So no, there's from a sealed pack to access. Who witnessed that?
I don't know who would have witnessed it. As far as Bridget or her orientee, when we dropped the patient off, they got out of there, and I was back in that unit for probably good, I don't know, probably 10 minutes, just getting stuff collected and getting his demographics and trying to find his ID. I mean, I would assume somebody would have saw me from the hospital. It wasn't. I didn't open up the vaccine and look by myself. I didn't. Yeah, I mean, As far as who, I don't know who, but I'm sure, I mean, I didn't do it somewhere in a broom closet somewhere. I mean, I guess, yes, but I don't know who would have saw me take it out of there.
Did anyone witness? Oh, I'm sorry, Shemaine.
Okay.
So, did anyone witness you throw it into the sharps box?
There was, yeah, there were several nurses at the ER, or several, I assume, nurses, unit secretaries, whoever. And I walked around. I remember I stood there, kind of looked, and I said, "Is there somewhere I can pitch this?" I said, you know, and they pointed over, you know, towards the trauma bay, and there was a sharps container, I think, on a code card or crash card or something on the end of a cabinet, and I put it in there. Like, my intent was to bring the form back in and have it, you know, have it all completed like I have always done in the past. But at that point, I was irritated that the paperwork was not there. I've got this vial now that I've got to destroy and get rid of, in combination with being up at 3 and 4, you know, 3 or whatever time it was in the morning, 1, 2 in the morning, and I asked where if there was a sharps container around, I could get rid of it, and pitched it, and I left.
So, if you have a patient, you didn't feel a need to give it after you were in the hospital,
Right.
and your pack was sealed, why not just keep the pack sealed and turn it in at the end of your shift and let the supervisor handle it?
That would have been the easiest. I guess, thinking back on it retrospectively, yes, that is what I would have probably have done. I mean, that makes the most sense. I guess looking back at it, I've never turned in narcotics or they were needed to be wasted or destroyed without an outside party signing, like the receiving nurse or receiving facility. So I just I don't, you know, it's hard to go back however many days ago and you know, put myself in that mindset with all the factors that were in play at the time. But I just remember thinking that I need to destroy this and waste it here at the hospital, so it's not in the pack and it's not looked at like, you know, how come there's an ARC pack turned in with a vial that's been tampered with, or you know, looking back on it, yes, the obvious thing would have just been to turn it back into the supervisor and, you know, explain to them what happened.
So, we pulled all the documentation. So, in totality, there were 5 different EPCRs generated under 4 different IN numbers for this one call.
Right.
Kind of walk me through why there were so many different EPCRs for this one.
And I saw that too, and I pulled. So I guess let me finish where I left off to kind of put it all into perspective, I guess, from my point of view. So I parked my PCRs that were in queue, and I had intended on coming back the next afternoon and finish them before I went to work at the police department. I woke up, I had to be at PD at 6, and I ended up, I don't know, I slept until 5 or so. I've been up for 30 some hours. Didn't even have barely enough time to get dressed to go to the PD, let alone come here and finish those reports. I did check my email, and Sheila had emailed me, I believe, that day, and then I did respond and say, well, I will be in to finish those. I'd been up for 30 whatever hours. I didn't, feel that I had could even, collect my thoughts together to write an appropriate pacing chart. So I needed to rest on it, and I would come in and get them finished. And I think it was close to it was late in the evening. I saw that I had a voicemail from Rachel, I guess. I'd never met Rachel, but and she said that there was an issue that needed to be that they had some questions about, and to call back as soon as possible. That was Friday afternoon, and I didn't realize that she left a voicemail until later at night. So I called and eventually got a hold of Tyler, and he asked me, he said, there was an open narc pack. Can you explain that? I didn't realize it was in the ambulance. I thought it was in the locker. And that's when I said, oh, I completely forgot that narc pack is in there without a wasted narc sheet. I said that's why it's in there. I pulled it because I pulled it at research. We didn't end up using it, and I didn't have any forms to turn in. So that's what happened. So I thought he found it in the locker and thought it was open, and had I had the form in there, it would not have been an issue. And he said, okay. And I said, well, he asked if I could come in, obviously, to take care of it. I said, yeah, I've got PCRs I need to finish anyway. I'm done here at the PD at 2 a.m. I can come in after that, or I plan on coming after that. And he said, or I can come in tomorrow morning. And he said, well, just come in tomorrow morning, or tomorrow, whenever you're able to. So that's what I did.
So did you recreate? I'm sorry.
Hold on a second.
I know it's hard. I feel like I keep remembering things and it doesn't help you, Shemaine.
All right.
Okay. So, looking at the 5 different EPCRs, and I've printed them so I can show them to you if you wish. There are 3 different signatures for the receiving nurse. Okay. So in one version, there's one is by Sarah and one is by Lisa.
Really?
You've got 3 different signatures. So of greater concern is the fact that after talking to the nurse manager at research, they don't even have a nurse named Sarah or Lisa that works there.
Yeah.
So, but